I didn't cry. I thought I would, but there was nothing left. Just an empty, hollow ache where love used to be. He stood there, waiting, hoping I would give him a way out of this. A chance to fix what couldn't be fixed. I never wanted to hurt you, he said, voice softer now, like that would make a difference. But you did. He sighed, rubbing his face. We can work through this. I shook my head. No. You worked through this when you decided she was worth the risk. His expression darkened. So that's it. 10 years just like that. I let out a bitter laugh. You ended it. I'm just accepting reality. He opened his mouth to argue, but I was done listening. Done trying to understand. I turned and walked away, each step heavier than the last. In our bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing. The weight of everything pressed down on me, but I refused to break. Not yet. Not while there were still things to do. Packed a bag. Not everything, just enough. Enough to leave. Enough to breathe. My son was asleep in the next room, unaware that his world was about to change. That tomorrow, things wouldn't be the same. Quiet knock on the door. Please, my husband said. Don't do this. I zipped up the bag and stood, finally facing him. I deserve better. His eyes searched mine, desperate. And what about our son? My chest tightened. That was the only thing that made this hurt. But I wouldn't let my child grow up in a house built on lies. He deserves better too. Silence stretched between us, thick with everything we would never be again. I walked past him without looking back. Waited. I sat through dinner, through my son's bedtime routine, through the quiet hum of the house settling into the night. My husband acted normal, completely unaware that I had seen everything. He kissed our son goodnight, told me he was tired, and stretched as if this was just another evening. I let him believe that. When the house was silent and there was no one left to protect from the truth, I finally spoke. Who is she? My voice was steady, too steady. He blinked, confused, then frowned. What? I held his gaze. Oh. She. Realization dawned in his eyes, followed by something else. Panic. His body stiffened, his fingers flexed, but he covered it quickly. I don't know what you're talking about. A laugh escaped me, sharp and humorless. Don't do that. Don't lie to my face when I already know. He exhaled, rubbing his jaw. You're overreacting. Wrong answer. I grabbed the laptop and opened it, pulling up the messages. I turned the screen toward him, watching the color drain from his face. Explain this, I said, my voice colder now. His mouth opened, closed. He ran a hand through his hair, stalling. It's not what it looks like. My pulse pounded in my ears. Then what is it? Silence. A charged, suffocating silence. I never meant for this to happen, he said finally, voice low. It just happened. I stared at him, waiting for the apology that never came. Waiting for something, remorse, guilt, anything that would make this moment hurt less. She means nothing, he continued. It was a mistake. Mistake. Weeks of messages, plans, ways, all a mistake. I clenched my fists to keep from shaking. So, when you told her you missed her, when you told her you couldn't stand being around me, that was a mistake too. His face twisted. I didn't mean it like that. Then tell me how you did mean it. He had no answer. I felt something inside me crack, something deep and unfixable. How long? His jaw tensed. Does it matter? My chest tightened. It matters to me. Was. A long, excruciating pause. 6 months, he admitted. 6 months. Half a year. While I kissed him goodnight. While I trusted him. While I thought we were happy. I exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of every second settle on my skin. He stepped closer, reaching for my hand. I love you. I don't want to lose this. Pulled back. You already did. I kept my expression neutral, forcing myself to breathe. My son was still working through his problem, completely unaware that his innocent request had just shattered something inside me. I didn't react. Not yet. Couldn't. Not in front of him. The message was gone, but the words echoed in my head. Can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing. Miss you already. I needed to see more. My hands felt unsteady as I reached for the laptop. Hey, let me check something real quick, I said casually, hoping my voice didn't betray me. My son shrugged and slid it over. Blick. Email. Nothing unusual. Blick. Social media. Clean. Blick. Messages. There it was. A name I didn't recognize. I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the trackpad. If I opened it, there would be no turning back. But wasn't it already too late? The conversation was there, right in front of me. The messages stretched back weeks. Flirty, intimate, detailed. Not just words but pictures. Inside jokes. Plans. A full-blown relationship hidden in plain sight. My throat felt tight, my stomach hollow. I wanted to stop reading, but I couldn't. My eyes traced every word, every promise he had made to her. Words that used to belong to me. He told her he missed her. That he couldn't wait to hold her again. That being around me and our son felt like an obligation. My heart clenched so hard it hurt. My ears rang. I closed the laptop slowly, carefully, as if slamming it shut would make it all real. I turned to my husband. He was still lost in his phone, comfortable, unbothered. How many times had he sat here in this same spot, texting her while I cooked dinner? While I folded his clothes? While I kissed him goodnight? Anger burned beneath my skin, but I forced it down. Not yet. My son was still here. Still unaware that his mother's world had just crumbled. I wouldn't let him see this. I inhaled shakily, pressing my hands against my lap to stop them from shaking. I had proof now. I had answers. And soon he would have questions to answer too. I sat at the dining table, flipping through my son's homework as he scribbled answers beside me. It was a quiet evening, the kind that made me grateful for our little family. My husband was in the living room, half watching TV, half scrolling through his phone. It was normal, his routine. I never thought much of it. Our home felt warm, safe. The kind of life we had built together was something I took pride in. We had been married for 10 years, parents for 7. There were challenges, of course, but nothing out of the ordinary. We had date nights, family weekends, inside jokes. We weren't perfect, but we were solid. At least that's what I believed. I turned my attention back to my son's assignment. He was struggling with math, biting his lip as he tried to figure out an equation. Let's break it down, I said, nudging his notebook. He sighed dramatically but smiled, his small hand tightening around the pencil. Moments like this reminded me of why everything was worth it, why we worked so hard, why we pushed through the exhaustion. From the corner of my eye, I noticed my husband typing quickly, then tilting his phone away. A reflex, maybe. Something minor. But it planted a tiny seed of unease. Pushed it aside. We trusted each other. Didn't we? Mom, can I use Dad's laptop? Mine is dead, my son asked suddenly. I glanced over at my husband, who looked up, hesitating for half a second too long before nodding. Yeah, sure, buddy. It was nothing. Just a pause. I told myself I was overthinking. We continued working, and my son clumsily navigated the laptop, clicking between tabs. A notification popped up in the corner of the screen. Just a small, harmless message preview. But it wasn't harmless. Can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing. Miss you already. Time stop. My body went cold, my vision tunneled in on those words. My son, oblivious, clicked away from the message, but it was burned into my brain. I swallowed hard, my hands suddenly clammy. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. A work friend. A joke. But deep down something told me it wasn't. My heart pounded against my ribs, my stomach twisted. I turned to look at my husband, but he wasn't looking at me. He was focused on his phone again, completely unaware that, in just a few seconds, everything had changed.